Get Radio's Business Brunch with Ben and Mike. Sponsored by We Do HR Support. Leave your HR to the experts so you can focus on what you do best.
Good morning. This is Get Radio and welcome to the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike. My name's Ben Thompson, owner of Thompson and Terry Recruitment.
And my name is Mike Foster, the Entrepreneur's Mentor. And together, Ben and I also run the Oxford Business Community Network. Now, firstly, a shout out to all the dads, daddies, pops and alike for today as it's Father's Day. And we're really looking forward to today's show because we're welcoming our expert guests as usual. And as you know, by now, our show introduces you to local trusted experts whilst also discussing topical issues that you, the listeners, tell us that are impacting on local businesses. And on today's show, we look forward to welcoming Andy Munday of Oodle Car Finance, Louise Puddifoot of Willow and Puddifoot, and Claire Edwards from Smeg. So Ben, this week's question, how has customer service in the customer journey changed since the pandemic?
That's a really great question, Mike. And look forward to putting that forward to our three experts, whilst, of course, I'm sure talking about other things in line with their experience and skills and what they've experienced over the last couple of years. This is the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike. We'll be welcoming our first guest after this. Welcome back to the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike on Get Radio. Our first guest today is Andy Munday of Oodle Car Finance. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks so much for joining us this morning. So Andy, let's start. Tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, your background, and indeed Oodle.
Yeah, so I have been in the customer service game pretty much since I left school, even before that really. Started with the John Lewis Partnership, so customer service has always been a big passion of mine, hence where I'm kind of where I am now, looking after the customer service team at Oodle Car Finance. For those of you that don't know who we are an auto car finance company. Have been in and around the market now for about 6 years to try and really disrupt a market that has been a bit stuck in its ways over the years. I think COVID hopefully has kind of prompted the retail auto industry, and then car finance to really get a little bit more up to speed with the times. So it's kind of enabled us to move a little bit faster with some of the things that we wanted to do and give kind of people who take out car finance a chance to see how customer service can be done right, from the point of trying to find your loan all the way to really kind of having that loan and kind of being a lifetime customer with us. I joined when we were about 2 and a bit years old, had a team of me and 5 in the team back then. We've grown substantially, so we're kind of approaching 40 people in the customer services team now. We've added layers into the structure to kind of really give customers what they need, with particular focuses on that kind of first contact resolution, being able to kind of just speak to us once, try and drive a little bit of self-serve in there too, and give customers ability to own what they're trying to do, and really just try and mix things up from what's been quite a stale space in the past, you might say.
No, absolutely. One of the things I always like about Oodle as a business is very much about your values, and you're of all the businesses that I've worked with across Oxfordshire, I would say that if I had to pick one, without offending any other business, I'd say that Oodle are the one that is probably the most value-led. Can you do a better job than I've just done there of talking about the Oodle values and not necessarily the individual values, but why that's so important to you as a business and what that really kind of means to, I guess, your staff and your customers?
Yeah, I think the values for us kind of underpin everything we do, whether that's the decisions we make, the people we hire, the services we want to deliver, and the products we kind of make. It kind of gets everybody built into doing the same thing. So we've got values that center around customers first and foremost, one core value that sits in the middle, and then kind of just drive certain behaviors that we want to do. We want to be collaborative, we want to disrupt things, we welcome and encourage ideas, we kind of want that diversity in the team for people to come in and bring their different experiences, and that's not just work experience but life experience too. We talk a lot about being human in our values and the kind of merits of people, so we can use technology and computers for lots of really good things, really clever things too, but there's that human element that's always going to be needed. And I think because we have a really well-founded and set of core values from Johnny and Phil, who founded the business back in 2015, we can always revert back to those to really make sure that the decisions we're making are still true to what it is we're trying to achieve, still in line with that kind of mission statement we set to really kind of bring what we want to do to the market.
Absolutely. And one of the things I always find quite interesting about Oodle is the fact that you're a fintech as opposed to a finance business. Can you just talk to the listeners a little bit more about that?
So I think traditionally kind of people have always seen car finance as being, and it's always a bit of a bolt-on, you kind of traditional journey as you go into a car dealership, speak to a nice person, you might get a test drive the car, and then it comes to talking to the numbers kind of afterwards, and you kind of just choose who's going to give you the best rate and don't really get to differentiate on anything else other than maybe what might be cheapest per month for you. We kind of want to change that mindset. There's kind of a real need for people who have their car finance to be looked after and treated as a customer and an individual, and not just someone who has bought a car and needed a vehicle to be able to fund that. In order to be able to do that, we need to make use of technology in this new world, and we really pride ourselves on being data driven. We've got a real good set of teams in and among the data engineering and IT kind of segments within Oodle who try and build things with a kind of a customer first mindset. We can only really do that if we are properly a fintech. So the finance element is one, and it's really important because we're still a finance-led business. That's what we're here to provide in terms of a product. But actually, when it comes to service and all the other bits and pieces that really make up who we are as a brand, we wouldn't be where we are without the kind of tech and the stuff that we've brought in to support customers with that journey.
No, absolutely. We will talk more about kind of customer service in the roundtable, because I'm sure Claire and Louise will have lots of insight to add. But sorry, the recruiter is going to mention recruitment. I bet you couldn't have guessed. Oxford is notoriously a hard place to attract talent, but I know that Oodle are very well regarded, won lots of awards, and a really, really kind of great place to work. Can you just kind of talk to the listeners a little bit more about what it is like to work at Oodle and some of the things you've done to really kind of attract the best talent in this competitive market?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we kind of pride ourselves on is having that great place to work, and the award's a testament to the hard work that particularly that kind of employee experience team have put in. There's a lot of different things we do to retain people, but also find them. So we work with some really good people from a recruitment perspective, people like yourself, but we also kind of drive internal recruitment massively. We've got some really great people in the business, and we'd be naive to think that they didn't also know some really great people with a good set of experience. So making sure that we're kind of vocal about that and encouraging things. We've got a number of different bits and pieces that we do internally to make life a great place to work. We've really tried to embrace that kind of work-life balance in the kind of post-COVID era too, to give people a little bit more of what they want, but we still really merit the ability to come into the office and actually see people face to face, bounce those ideas off each other, those water cooler chats, if you like. And we do a lot of kind of stuff that really gives back to people that work here, from team meetings across the board, led by kind of senior members of our Exco team, to things like Oodle Fest, which you'll be aware of, Ben, where we have a festival every year to celebrate Oodle and everything that's great about it. Johnny, who's our CEO, gets up and does his good speech, but it's a chance for everybody to actually see each other outside of that kind of work environment. And different teams also have the autonomy to be able to go and do their own thing, and cross-team, cross-department kind of bits and pieces to get to know each other and actually be more collaborative when it comes to actually getting back to the day-to-day.
Absolutely. For anyone listening in, please look at Oodle social media. Oodle Fest was amazing, and I took fancy dress really well with my inflatable tiger, which was good fun. So no, thank you so much for that, Andy. The final question before we go to the round table is your song choice. You've chosen a song for the listeners this morning. What was your song choice, and why have you picked it?
So my song choice, as put together by the team, was Rihanna with Work, because as you can imagine, it's been a very busy period of time for us lately. So it's that one.
This is the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike on Get Radio. Before that song, we were listening to Ben welcoming our first guest today, and also listening to Ben and his blow-up tiger. Who believe it? But our second guest today is Louise Puddifoot of Willow and Puddifoot. Welcome, Louise.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for joining us, Louise. First of all, tell our listeners a little bit about you and your business.
Certainly, thanks. So I'm the managing director of Willow and Puddifoot, and we're a small training consultancy. So we help businesses build the quality of their workplace by training and developing employees within the workplace. So we provide things like manager training, leadership development, other soft skills training like presentation skills and time management, and other elements related to customer service, as well as things like mental health and wellbeing support.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to deep dive into customer service a little bit later in our round table. So I'm not going to hold on to that too much. I just want to find out a little bit more about you and the business. And I understand that you founded Willow and Puddifoot to help scale ups with the significant people challenges that come with rapid transformation. So tell our listeners a little bit more about the type of challenges that you see with scale up businesses.
Absolutely. As businesses are growing really quickly, they're typically recruiting really, really fast, and teams are changing really quickly as well. So there's lots of new people coming in, and the composition from a people perspective of each team is changing really quickly all the time. So we see that teams need to be able to constantly adapt to the latest requirements that they have. And in particular, from a people manager perspective, we see people coming into people management roles who often not only don't have much experience of managing people themselves, but they often are fairly early in their career and haven't had that much experience of being managed either. So they're taking on that responsibility of managing people without much to go on. And it's a very different skill set that's needed to manage people than the regular part of your job. You know, the coding or the customer service or whatever part of your role you normally do requires a very different skill set than managing people. So a lot of what we do is around really equipping those people managers with the skills that they need to be able to manage people and teams effectively, and take those people and that team on that journey of growth and constant evolution to support the business as it evolves.
Fantastic. Yeah. And certainly in my experience, I've seen, individuals grow through a business and then, they're good at what they do technically, and then needing those management skills that I'm sure you deploy to people. And I guess the bit that I wanted to know from yourself is, it's all about, personal development, isn't it? An individual's personal development. But tell us a little bit more about the profile of someone who is more likely to put their hand up and say, I need some personal development, rather than those that probably think they know it already.
Yeah, we talk a lot, don't we, these days, about people having a growth mindset and being a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. So I think a lot of the businesses we work with really celebrate that kind of mindset and people wanting to learn and grow, and see it as a really positive thing for people to raise their hand and say that they would like some personal development. And certainly we find that those people who are asking to develop and asking for help and asking to grow are the people that will then go on to be the most successful, because they do have that open mind and they do have that awareness to know where their strengths are and where are areas that they want to focus or improve. So definitely would encourage that mindset. I think particularly in these high growth businesses as well, things that are changing all the time. So you can never know it all, because even the products and services and the technologies you're using and the processes you're using will change all the time. So you really do have to have the open mind to constantly be learning.
And we've had a number of conversations, and we're sharing our experiences in the tech sector. And I guess that's one of the sectors that you work quite well in. Tell us a bit more about the other sectors that you work in as well.
We work across a number of high growth sectors. We, as well as tech, we also work with other evolving businesses. We work with some businesses in the kind of climate protection side of things. That's another growing area, because more and more businesses are focused on buying services that help them do things like reduce their carbon footprint or look after the climate in other ways. And so those businesses are growing. We support that sector as well. And also my background actually is coming from a kind of market research data analyst background originally. So we have a number of clients in that space who are focused on providing insights to clients and market research, looking at the kind of work that the kind of results that they're having and the kind of impact they're making from a market research perspective as well.
Fantastic. Well, good to know the type of sectors you're working with, but I'm sure, obviously management training can go across all sectors. One thing I found really interesting when I was reading your website earlier was that you mentioned yourself as a bit of a geek for anything to do with psychology. So tell us a little bit how that plays a part in what you do with businesses.
Yeah, I think people are fascinating to me, and understanding us as human beings and how we operate and what motivates us, what makes us tick, what helps us work more successfully together and independently is really interesting to me. Many years ago, I graduated with a psychology degree. So that was probably the beginning of it. But since then, I'm just always interested to read the latest research, learn the latest techniques and that kind of thing, and put it into practice. And I think that so much of the success of a workplace is down to how people manage themselves and how they interact with each other and manage each other, that I think it makes a huge difference to the success of a business, a huge difference at the end of the day to, you know, employee engagement, to retention, to recruitment, to the bottom line of the business. So I love understanding how people work well together and how people can manage themselves more effectively, and then seeing the benefits of that from an individual level and a person to person level, but also the impact that has on a business as well.
Fantastic. Love it. Well, I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit more with the roundtable. As I always say to our guests, now for the most difficult question, same question that Ben asked to Andy. Your song for our listeners today. Why did you choose your song for the listeners? And what is that song choice?
So my song choice is Count on Me by Bruno Mars. Bit of a cheesy choice. I thought it reflects the kind of customer service we like to give to our clients and that they can count on us. And I also thought it was a nice choice for Father's Day and a nice mellow, uplifting Sunday tune.
Welcome back. This is Get Radio, and this is the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike. Our final guest today is Claire Edwards of Smeg. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Claire. So let's start. Tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself and indeed Smeg.
So I operate in a rather unusual role within the business. My title is Head of Consumer and Retailer Events. So whilst we're an appliance brand, it's my role to bring the appliances to life and to make sure that we totally engage with our consumers in the best way possible. So I think, people don't necessarily know Smeg for its full worth. We are a family-owned business. We're an Italian domestic appliance brand. And I think most people associate us for the funky kettles and the toasters and the fridges. But actually, the family is very passionate about not only design, but food. So you'll find that a lot of our appliances are mainly the built-in, so ovens and range cookers, but really the whole kitchen set.
Amazing. And one of the things I found fascinating when I visited your site a few weeks back is some of the amazing kind of hospitality that you do there. So what kind of things do you do with different businesses and different guests?
So it's important for us that, as I say, we work together with our consumers, but also the wider consumer. And as a business, I think in order to make people aware of what you are and as a brand, and as I said, we perhaps always associated for this fridge brand, is to bring people into your facility and to actually get them to see for what we're worth. So in Abingdon, we do have a full showroom. We have an experiential living kitchen. So whilst people can come and see the appliances as a regular consumer, and they can engage with us in cookery classes in the living kitchen, it's a great area, a great facility for working with other businesses to either use it as a meeting venue, which is just slightly different to the average, and incorporate with that, of course, some team building. So we love to get people, rolling their sleeves up and the pinnies on, perhaps even making a pizza from scratch, because it's a great way, I think, as a team to really get to know each other and have a bit of a break away from the norm, like I said.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know that you do quite a lot of is collaborations with other brands. Certainly going back to the roots of Smeg in terms of kind of the design background, but some of the kind of the collaborations that you've done. So talk to the listeners a little bit more about how you collaborate, whether that be with the big brands on the design side or whether that be locally with local businesses. So you've invited us, for example, for an event at your place. So thank you for that.
It's all right. So it was good to have you. But yeah, we have worked with some very cool brands and we're working with them. So Dolce & Gabbana, I think, is probably our most famous collaboration. If you haven't seen any of their appliances, they're very bright, bold and beautiful. But we also have worked with the likes of Disney, with Mickey Mouse and Peanuts. But in terms of working locally, and with other brands. So of course, we are inviting the Oxfordshire Business Network in to do a corporate event, but in terms of other brands and working together, there's some great affiliations. So for example, in lockdown, we felt it was important that we didn't just shut our doors, because essentially that's what we all had to do, but in fact to work with other brands to hang out with our customers, albeit in the virtual world that we're chatting in today. So if we take, for example, Filippo Berio, some of you might have known them as an olive oil brand. So we did a cook along with one of their home economists and ourselves. And it was a great opportunity for customers to, as I say, cook a recipe with us, but of course, as a business, a great opportunity to share different databases. So whilst we would promote to our consumer network that we were running a cook along, likewise would Filippo Berio, and therefore both brands got to share their customers and hopefully a very good experience that they went away with and then talked to many others.
Whilst very different to Oodle Car Finance and Willow and Puddyfoot, I think the reason why we brought you all together is because customer service and customer journey is so important to the three of you. But talk to me a little bit about the Smeg customer journey, because I think you get a lot of reputation initially because your products look amazing, don't you? But I think it's so much deeper than that. Tell the listeners a little bit more about the customer journey and that customer cycle.
Yeah, so you're right. We do have a household name, and I think that beautiful retro refrigeration has made that happen for us. But it's important that we do own the consumer right from the beginning to end. So we have invested very much in the experiential, so that customers can really see the appliances and engage with ourselves and other retailers to find out more about the appliances before they buy. So we invested, I want to say it was in 2017, a facility just off Piccadilly Circus in St James's Place, where we have our own London store. And we also have our head office, which we again developed to become showrooms so that customers could come in. And we have people there in both facilities where they can either talk face to face, but of course, in this new world, we offer virtual appointments. So right from the very beginning, the customer can find out more about the appliances. When they buy the appliances, of course, they want to know how to use them. So we are also there from working with two home economists within the business that know, live, breathe these appliances inside and out. So if a customer wants to ask a question, speak to the person that's actually knows what they're doing, then we have that too. But I think, we have seen a change, certainly in our customer service department, once customers have the appliances, how we continually engage with them. So whether it be, instigating and adding in a new chat box facility. So we all know that customers work, they have lives, we're all back to normal life now. So to be able to engage with us out of hours is really important. So we do have chat box. We've also invested heavily in a support portal. So when customers go onto our website, there's a frequently asked questions as you'd expect, but a really optimized search term that allows customers to either self-solve, to find a recipe, to get some tips. And on top of that, we're working really hard at the moment to create even YouTube videos and building that YouTube channel. So, I don't know about you, but if I buy something and I'm not sure how to use it, or I want to get the best out of it, the first thing I do is I'm straight on that computer and I'm seeing what I can find via Google.
No, absolutely. Isn't YouTube now the largest search engine? I think it's overtaken Google, although it's owned by Google. So no, can certainly see the future there. No, amazing. Thank you so much for that insight, and look forward to speaking more indeed with Louise and Andy. But before that, you have chosen a song for our listeners this morning. What is your song choice and why did you pick it?
So a little bit like Louise, it had to be a cheesy song choice, but we went with Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson. The reason being, of course, what we really did during that lockdown period was hang out with our customers. They weren't allowed outside. It was raining outside. It was miserable with COVID. So it was all about cooking together, and that's what we want to do with our customers and continue to do. So Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson.
This is the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike on GETRADIO. Our show aims to share the knowledge, experience and the expertise of our guests, whilst also discussing topical issues impacting on local businesses. And today we're talking about all things customer service and the customer journey.
Thank you, Mike. For this part of the show, we welcome back our three guests for a roundtable discussion. If you are just tuning in, or indeed a reminder, we have Andy Munday of Oodle Car Finance, Louise Puddyfoot of Willow and Puddyfoot, and Claire Edwards of Smeg. Andy, I'm just going to bring you into the conversation. Firstly, what do you feel makes really, really good customer service?
I think there's a few things. I think when it comes to really good customer service and what kind of sets you apart is having a good availability of channels for customers to be able to interact with you. So different customers have different ways that they prefer to interact with the business. And that will differ depending on the business that they're interacting with too. And then I think kind of secondary to that, the information they need needs to be kind of super supportive. So whether that be from a website and an FAQ list, whether it's the portal or an app that customers kind of expect to have in this kind of day and age, or the conversations they have with your people at the other end of a telephone or a live chat feature, the information that they need to be able to get needs to be super relevant, and you need to be able to kind of bespoke that to the person. So being able to really get to the crux of what it is the customer wants, and then being able to provide that might not mean that necessarily they get the information they were expecting, but your job then too to deliver great customer service is to really help the customer realize that.
Brilliant. And Louise, I wanted to bring a question over to you, because one of the things I also read on your website that I wanted to hold back for the round table was that your leaders need to be able to collaborate, innovate, and problem solve. So how does that fit into sort of customer service, if you like?
Well, firstly, I suppose I think that if you treat your people well as a leader, then your people treat your customers well. So I feel like the whole thing is linked in terms of leaders not only leading their customers, but also leading their people. So I think from a leadership perspective, we want to help people role model behaviors where they're serving each other well. And then that will then be reflected on how clients and customers are treated. The way that we see really good customer service from our perspective, when we're working with leaders in different businesses, is really building really close relationships and being real trusted advisor type, taking a trusted advisor type approach. So for us as a kind of small boutique company, it's all about really getting deep in with people, understanding their businesses inside and out, becoming a partner to their businesses, and really kind of tailoring what we do to fulfill their specific business needs. And from that leadership perspective, that's then helping them grow, helping them innovate, helping them problem solve as we go along that journey with them.
Claire, I know within your role, it's part of what Smeg do, or part of the customer journey. You know, you've got people that speak on the phone, and you've got different departments. How do you as a business ensure that, I guess, the level of service and the consistency is there, whichever touch point they have across dealing with Smeg?
So one of my roles, apart from bringing the products to life, is also to make sure that every employee, regardless whether they are, taking the order, whether they're, packing it in a warehouse and popping it on the back of a lorry, through to the people that are phoning in to get support for their appliance, are fully trained. So we ensure that as part of the induction process, apart from understanding how every department interacts with each other, but we make sure that everybody has that level of product training so that they really understand the product as much as they can within their role, inside and out, so that they can support and be consistent. Like you say, it is important because, to walk into our showroom facility and have one experience, and to phone our customer engagement team and have a different experience is not what we want. We want that all the way through. So we actually have started recently, and it works really, really well, because we operate primarily from like a 8:30 to 5:30 core hours. Is that before our phones open, we actually bring the main, stakeholders in the customer experience, which is our customer engagement team, and we bring them away from the phones. They grab a cup of coffee, they come down into our showroom area, and we actually provide just 30 minutes of product training, whether that be a listen, a see, a touch, a feel, to actually make a coffee, or to, clean, to holistically see that product from start to finish, so that we have that consistency.
Fantastic. And Andy, one of the things I really loved about what your introduction with Ben was that you have a culture to create a great place to work. So how does that, creating that great place to work, how does that impact on your outward customer service?
I think, and Louise kind of touched on this a little minute ago, around having a group of leaders or a leadership team that kind of leads from the front and make sure that the people that you work with have a really good kind of environment to work in. Ultimately, kind of, there's that really kind of cringy phrase around kind of smile when you dial. I think you don't have to think about smiling when you dial if you're just already smiling. If you're in a great kind of place and you enjoy the people you work with, you're going to be in a good mood. So I think what we really want to focus on is making sure that the people we work with don't just have a great place to work, but also encourage those around them to be part of a great place to work too. You're in the same team, and I think my team in customer service, we don't just see customer service as one team. Actually, you're part of a bigger team that is Oodle. So if you're collaborating with someone else, actually you have a duty and a responsibility as part of building the business that we're trying to build to make that a great place to work for the other people that you're kind of with. I think what that does is really kind of means that when you are customer facing or you're building a product or what have you, you're going in with that kind of enthusiasm that I really know what I'm doing here. I enjoy what I do. And actually I know like what that means at the end kind of result. We talk about the values and stuff at the start, and having that customer centric value that underpins all the others, that ultimately is the crux of whether or not you're doing a good job, and you kind of get that satisfaction from it as well.
Another really good point. Louise, coming across yourself really from a training point of view, what can you train and what's natural? So when hiring staff and building a team, which bits can be trained and which bits do you need before you hire the person, I guess?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a mixture of the two. But I think the biggest thing in terms of what you're looking for in a person when you're hiring them or promoting them potentially is their intention and their desire. So it's not so much that you need to have all the skills in place, but you want to hire someone in a customer service role who wants to give really good customer service. It doesn't necessarily matter if they have the skills in place or not to do that. You can train all of that. But it's that intention that is the most important thing. We say the same thing for moving people into management or leadership positions. They have to want to be a good manager. They have to have the intention that they want to create a highly motivated team, not just be in a job because it's a job or a better position or whatever. And as long as they have that, the rest can be trained. In terms of what we train, I think there's two sides to it. There's the kind of process side, which is more business specific around, how do we do this here? And then there's the people skills. So that's, how do you really understand what somebody's needs are? How do you get inside their head and kind of really feel like you can predict what they're going to need, that you can go above and beyond to meet their needs? Skills related to that around listening, asking great questions, having empathy, that kind of thing.
So just think about customer service from a family business perspective. How does a family business sort of impact the customer service that you're delivering?
I think for us, as a brand and as a business, it started as a family business. We continue with that family ethos. And I think, as both Andy and Louise were saying earlier on, it's really important that everybody that works at SMEG feels part of that family and feels engaged. And as I said, with the training, to have that, feeling of empowerment and worth to know what your overall business is serving is actually going to be impactful to what you do, no matter what your role is. So I think having that family ethos comes all the way through. And we talked about engaging your team members, and it's something we do a lot of too. I don't know if it's quite as good as Oodle Fest, but we ensure that making sure that everybody feels part of that family and therefore, wants to give everything they've got. SMEG's very good at putting on a great Christmas party. In fact, we have our own summer party just coming up very soon. So it's those little things. It's knowing that when there is a Father's Day coming up or there is a special event, that everybody feels part and is included. So we'll often come in the morning and there's something on our desk, whether it be an Easter egg, a sunflower seed. So at the moment we've got a sunflower seed competition growing. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to make everyone feel part of that family. And I think then when you're talking to the customer at home that has their own family, you can engage and work with them a lot better.
Amazing. Claire, from memory, you have a very competitive dragon boat racing team in Abingdon, so it's win-win. It's win-win. Thank you so much to our three guests so far. We will continue the conversation after this. Welcome back to the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike on Get Radio. Before that song, we are speaking with our three experts: Andy Munday of Oodle Car Finance, Louise Puddifoot of Willow and Puddifoot, and Claire Edwards of SMEG. Really about people, customer service, and indeed that customer journey. Andy, I'm just going to come across to you from I guess with your management hat on. Growing a team from 5 to 40 is a massive achievement. But I guess what I'd be interested to learn is how has that team developed and how has that journey developed over that period of time to ensure that you've consistently won awards throughout that time. So to keep the levels high, if that sort of makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. I've mumbled there a little bit, haven't I?
That's okay. I think it's come from a place of really understanding who your team are and being really clear from the offset about what you want your team to be as you go through those stages. We're lucky here that the most senior people at Oodle are really good with communication. So we know what the plan is, we know when the plan changes, and we kind of have a good idea of how we fit into that plan relative to what department you're in. But you're also given the autonomy to kind of put your own stamp on things. So I think having all that information means that you're kind of good from the offset to go and execute, and being really clear about where we want to go and what's important along the way. So you've got a plan to be able to train and upskill people. When I first joined, there were a multitude of different tasks that we now no longer do because we've either automated or they've become redundant. But that has definitely been replaced by some new things and other bits and pieces that we want to do to improve that kind of customer experience and customer journey along the way. But it's all come from also knowing who your team are and where they're at. So succession planning is one of the things that I think I pride myself most on at Oodle. I think I have more people now working other teams across Oodle than I actually have in my team at Oodle. But making sure that you've got a plan in place to be able to move forward with that, and everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. So as much as the communication is really important from those that make the super high level decisions, communication from me and then the team leaders and the like also needs to be kind of sequential. Everybody needs to know what we're doing, where we're at, and the role that they play too. So as that evolves, we also need to make sure that we're communicating what that evolution looks like to everybody else so that we can all keep pace.
Brilliant, thanks, Andy. And Louise, just thinking about, I guess, the training and oversight that you give to leaders and managers. When we've gone through that journey in terms of, as I was alluding to in the introduction, we're really good at customer service, so we get promoted into that type of role. But then the business evolves. How do you encourage leaders and managers to keep engaged with the ground floor, if you like, and the customer interaction?
Yeah, I think aligned with what Andy said, really, it's about keeping the communication open and keep having those two-way conversations. A lot of the skills that we teach our managers and leaders are around kind of coaching type approaches to managing and leading. So there's a lot of asking questions, getting people's ideas, encouraging people to think differently, to think creatively, and working together in that way. I think it's also around building teams that work well together. So not just, thinking of yourself as a manager or a leader and your interaction with every individual, but also about how are you creating that environment that both Andy and Claire have touched on in terms of how people then work together and communicate amongst each other so that things can happen without you and people can work things out without you as well as be dependent on you.
No, really, really fascinating. Really, really fascinating. Claire, I know that that SMEG have adapted a lot over the years, and you've had consistencies, but in terms of you always seem to be looking for ways to offer that better level of service and to grow, and the office move feels like a long time ago, but it's probably not actually that long ago, is it? How do you? I guess where do those ideas come from, and I guess where is the autonomy given in terms of finding better ways to offer that kind of that end customer journey, how do you kind of come up with that level of innovation?
Well, I think apart from being an appliance brand, we definitely see ourselves as a marketing brand because, we are so in front of our consumers and chatting with them day to day with whatever format. So when we were based at Milton Park, we felt that the facilities there were great, but weren't, one, expanding with the size of our business, but two, weren't able to offer that experiential that we wanted to achieve. So yeah, you're right. A few years ago, we moved onto Abingdon Business Park, where we have a huge facility, which, started off primarily as just a showroom, but the more and more the products become live so that people can interact, because it was the feedback that we were getting from customers that it's okay seeing an appliance that, looks beautiful, but how does it work? And I'd like to use the controls. I really want to interact with it. So it's this whole try before you buy. And then there's that level of customer that wants to go to the next degree, which is they want to physically use it. They want to try it. They want to, bring their plates and try them in the dishwasher, something as simple as that. But they want to really experience the products from finish to end. But I think it's one of those things where you have to constantly adapt. So whilst, face-to-face worked well for us before pandemic, it was very very, very clear that, you know, the mindset of many people have changed, and this ability to interact with us from afar has been really important. So, you know, doing the Zoom cook-alongs, developing our Instagram and our social media. You know, we even have somebody now who works primarily, you know, on Facebook Messenger to ensure that customers who would like to interact with us in that way can actually get the feedback that they want. We, in the pandemic, put a few videos up just to say, right, you know, they were ones that we were using actually as part of our own internal trainings and to train our own retailers that sell our appliances. But out of all the videos that we put up on YouTube, the videos of a person like myself presenting and talking directly to the consumer, which is what they want. They want that face-to-face, even though they couldn't have it, has then meant that, you know, that video has actually received more, you know, views and likes than any other professionally, you know, CGI video. We knew then that it was the person that made the difference. So I think for us, we are always changing. I don't think my role at Smeg has been the same from year to year, and I've been with the company nearly 8 years. And that's because we always want to think of the next step, and we're always, you know, what is that next step? You know, how can we constantly improve? And certainly from my role, yes, but also our customer engagement team, it's a constant review process. It's what's working, what's not working. It's listening to the consumers, it's listening to the people that work within those own departments and the feedback that they're getting to then adapt as a business to make sure that we are always offering the best customer service.
Super. And one of the things we love to do on the show is to share tips from you, the guests and experts, with our listeners. So, Andy, if we can kick off with yourself, what top tips would you share with our listeners today around customer service?
I would encourage those that aren't already, or do it to a degree, to really listen to your customers' feedback in as much level and as much detail as you can as possible. So whether that be through surveys, whether that be through your Trustpilot, Google reviews, those kind of avenues of feedback that you get, take the numbers, let the numbers give you some steer into where those kind of things to celebrate around success are, and don't just focus on the negatives. Make sure you're celebrating success and giving feedback to the team, and kind of evolving the good stuff you do already. But with the stuff that's constructive, let it kind of give you some shape in terms of the numbers and where you need to kind of look into, but then really get to the crux of it. Make sure that you're going into that feedback and getting the detail so that the feedback you're getting can be acted upon, and then make sure you're paneling from the wider group what you think those ideas should be. Some of the best ideas I've had have just been from creating a shared channel amongst the department in customer service and opening it up to saying, here's a problem, how do we fix it? And some of the great ideas and suggestions have been from people who've either come across this before or have just been thinking about it because they've been speaking to customers over the last couple of weeks but haven't had an avenue. And the amount of posts I get in this channel that we have now with just maybe a couple of problems a week, sometimes it's a couple of problems a day, but there are countless numbers of suggestions that we've then been able to act on and put in place. Because not only does it mean that you're then doing the right thing by the customer, but you give the team and everybody the kind of chance to feel like they're really having an impact. And I think that's super important when it comes to evolving, as we kind of discussed earlier on.
Absolutely. Really, really good point. Really, really good point. What about yourself, Louise? What would be your top tip?
I think mine would be put yourself in your customer's shoes. So we can all get caught up, can't we, in our own businesses, our own products and services, our own needs, what we're trying to achieve, and just trying to leave that to one side and really put yourself in your customer's shoes, think about things from their perspective and imagine what their needs are and what's going to make them happy. You can use all the techniques that Andy's described to help you do that. Ask a lot of questions, listen well, and also love what Andy said about asking the team. Same here, you know, often you think you have to come up with all the answers yourself, but if you just stop and listen for a moment and listen to other people's suggestions, you can get a much richer pool of ideas as well.
Super. Thanks, Louise. Love your tips as always. And Claire, finally from yourself, your top tips.
I think for mine, it's definitely hang out with your consumers. Don't be frightened of them. I think we sometimes hide behind our office walls, but actually being available to them in, you know, ways that work for your business, but also for your consumer. So constantly thinking about how can we improve that communication between not only the employee, but also, you know, your end customer, because I think that is, you know, it's your journey, isn't it? It's the customer's journey, and that should be at the forefront of everything you do.
Amazing. What a great tip. But unfortunately that is the end of the show. So thank you so much to our three guests on the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike on Get Radio today. If you are just tuning in, I definitely recommend listening back. We've had Andy Munday of Oodle Car Finance. We've had Louise Puddyfoot of Willow and Puddyfoot. And we've had Claire Edwards of Smeg. Thank you so much to the three of you for your time and contribution to the discussion. I think my big takeaway is all the nodding between three experts. You've all come up with such great insight, and you've all been supporting each other and agreeing with each other, which has been been really, really great to listen to and to watch. So thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Business Brunch with Ben and Mike here on Get Radio. We're back next Sunday, but with something a little bit more different. Next week, Ben and I are going to be reflecting back on some of the previous shows that hopefully you've been listening to, or you've been watched back on recording via the Get Radio website. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next week.